And welcome back. Today we're going to discuss about the brand new Fujifilm X-E5 that you see in my hands. And this is a review after using it for almost 3 weeks now. And if you follow this channel, you know that I already published a very long video reaction right after the announcement of the camera. In this video, I don't want to repeat myself as the vast majority of the opinion that I had didn't change. So if you want a deep dive, go check that video out. You're gonna find it over here. In this video, we're gonna keep it hopefully short and very focused on the user experience. Now, usual disclaimer here, Fujifilm Italia sent me this camera to review. I don't get to keep it, I have to return it. No money changed hands, they don't know what I'm about to say, and I'm, as always, going to be as unbiased as I possibly can. And now, without any further ado, let's just focus on the user experience and my opinion on this camera. And I want to start with the build quality of the camera because, as you probably know, this camera compared to the X-E4 got a huge price increase, especially in the US. And that price increase is partially due to the build quality and partially due to the actual internals of the camera. I want to start with the build quality first because if you don't try it, you don't know what you're looking at. So from a build quality standpoint, the camera feels very, very solid in the ends. The grip is small, but it's a grip nonetheless. And the small thumb rest on the back does its job. Now, of course, if you're mounting a 200mm f2 in front of this camera is going to be completely unusable without the addition of a grip because it's not meant to be used like that. But with normal lenses, small lenses that I believe this camera was made for, either small primes, pancakes, small zooms, stuff like that, the small grip and the thumb rest are going to be perfectly fine to help you hold the camera. The added 80 grams over the X-E4, definitely you can feel them in hands. The X-E4 felt super lightweight. This feels a little bit more heftier, but that is granted by better build quality and additional features and additional parts inside the camera, because this camera is finally stabilized. So yes, it's heavier, but it's built better and it gets you more. So for me, those 80 grams are something that you're going to be aware of, but they don't ruin the experience of using the camera. Now, I won't be drooling over the top plate of this camera because it's made of machined aluminum. I don't care if it feels good in the ends, it feels good in the ends. If it's well done, it's well done. Whether it's machined aluminum or stuff like that, it doesn't really matter. And it's well made. And since we're on the topic of the top plate of the camera, the two dials that you see on the right of the camera, meaning the shutter speed dial and the exposure compensation dial, are perfectly geared because the way they are in the perfect position for you to be easy to change them while you're using it, while not being too loose and not being easy to move if you're like taking the camera outside of the backpack or stuff like that. So the position is pretty good, and the overall feel of them is pretty nice. You can feel the texture, you can feel that they're built really well. On the other hand, the film simulation dial that you find here with the top window and the actual dial that is right next to the EVF, I think that on one hand it was the only position they could put it, so they didn't have that much choice. But the way I use the camera, I don't usually change my film simulation while I'm using the camera like that. So the fact that it's next to the viewfinder for the way I use the camera doesn't change that much. When I change the film simulation is because I'm changing shooting scenario. So I change it once and then I keep shooting with that setting for a while until I then need to change it again. But that doesn't happen in a hurry. That doesn't happen frantically. So for me, it's not a big deal. It's by far the most elegant version of the film simulation dial that you can find. And I know a lot of people don't think the film simulation dial is a gimmick and it's not something that should be in these cameras. I believe Fujifilm is doing the right thing by keep using it, and finally is giving us the possibility to customize those film simulation using the custom receipt. And it's the first time that they're using that term as well. Now, this is limited only to the 3 custom position, FS1, FS2, FS3. I still believe they should be giving us the possibility to add your own receipt on each one of those settings that you have, but 3 is better than nothing, and I think they're moving in the right direction there. The 2 items that are in theory subpar compared to the price of the camera are the EVF and the rear LCD panel, because from a resolution standpoint, they could have been higher resolution. However, the real LCD, while being only 1 million dots, so definitely lower resolution compared to what we can find on the market today, it's actually really good from a color perspective, from a contrast perspective. Even under the bright sun, I had 0 issues using this real LCD, which for me, if I have to pick between the resolution and being actually usable under the sun, I'd rather take a lower resolution and better usability under the sun. For comparison, the A7CR that is recording me right now has a higher resolution screen, but that screen is much, much worse under the sun to the point where it's almost unusable. So the resolution is not everything. This rear LCD panel, despite the low resolution, is still a great LCD when it comes to using it in the real world. I can tell whether something is in focus or not with this. Sometimes I can't with the Sony A7CR, and that camera costs twice as much as this one. So to keep things in perspective, yes, it could have been higher resolution. There's worse stuff out there, even at higher prices. Not a justification, but in the real world, the screen is more than usable. On the other hand, the EVF is definitely not huge and is definitely low resolution at 2.36, I believe, dots. But again, once you bring it to your eye, and granted, I'm not using glasses, that may make a huge difference between the way I use it and the way you use it, but bringing it to the eye, it's crisp, the contrast is really good, and even under difficult circumstances, you can see through the viewfinder pretty well. On top of that, the viewfinder in this camera introduces for the first time the vintage version of it. I don't know, it's got a specific name, I forgot to check for it. That may seem like a gimmick, but once you start using it, and if you're doing like street photography stuff that doesn't require you to check your settings all the time, that simplifies the scene and gets you just the image, basic data with a red font that looks pretty vintage, and even the exposure has a lever that moves up and down. That is probably a little bit too far, but still it gives you that vibe. And since Fujifilm is diving into that, it makes sense that they went that way. The addition of this lever over here, the one that seems like the X100, the GFX 100 RF and stuff like that, is a huge addition because it gives you 5 additional functions, let's just say functions, at your fingertip. And whether you like or not what Fujifilm assigned those functions to with the camera as a default with the camera, meaning the zoom in, the zoom, the digital zoom, the frame selection, the aspect ratio and stuff like that, you can change all of that and customize it the way you want. Those 5 function buttons at your fingertip increase the usability of the camera by a huge margin compared to the X-E4. The return of the back dial, which is also clickable, is another huge addition. You now have all the controls that you can possibly ask. The switch for the autofocus is here as well. There's a lot more stuff you can do, and if you're anything like me and you like customizing your camera and having to go to the menu the least amount of times possible, either the main menu or the quick menu, well, this camera is a huge step up over the X-E4. When it comes to using the camera, my experience with this camera was really impressive. All the pictures that you've seen on this video and the pictures that you will see in this video were taken with the 23mm f2.8. A review on this lens is going to come at a later stage. Stay tuned on that. Subscribe to the channel if you want to have a look at that review as well. But in general, this is the closest you can get today, as of July 2025, to having an X106 with interchangeable lenses. Because while this camera is actually a rangefinder style version of the X-T50, there's nothing that gets closer to the X106 than this camera with the 23mm f2.8. Of course, this is going to change when the new X Pro is going to be launched, but we don't know when that is going to come. For now, if you like the idea of the X106, but you don't want the limitation of having just the fixed lens, or you don't like the 35mm focal length, well, this camera is the closest you can get to getting that type of experience. As a street photography tool, as a daily driver, this camera delivered big time. The sensor is the best APS-C sensor that you can find in the market, and I've tried the vast majority of those. It's high resolution without being too taxing on the noise at high ISO. You could use it with no issues up to 1600 ISO, even 3200 ISO. For me, the way I like pictures, I can definitely use it up to 12,800 ISO, as long as whenever you get beyond 3,200 ISO, you focus on exposing for the shadows, meaning that you don't have to lift the shadows afterwards, and you make sure you don't push the image too much once you get that high with your ISO. If you expose it correctly, this camera gets you very good pictures even at 12,800 ISO, as long as you can accept a little bit of grain. It's not that digital noise that destroys the image. It's similar to grains. It's what I like about the way Fujifilm processes images is that, yes, there's more noise than other cameras, but it's actually grain rather than mushy details. So for me, it's again, it's the best sensor you can find on the APS-C market for photography. For video, it's a different story. I won't spend any more time on the sensor itself because I've discussed that sensor in a lot of videos on this channel. There's plenty of other channels discussing the video. If you know what you can get with an X-H2, X-T5, X-T50, X106, all of those cameras, this camera is going to get you the same image quality, and you're more than covered for high-end results. This camera, when it comes to image quality, should be enough for 99% of us. The stabilization in this camera, which is a nice addition compared to the X-E4, works relatively well. It's advertised for 7 stops in the center. 7 stops is way too far. I would trust this camera to be stabilized for like 3-4 stops with no issues. I could shoot with the 23mm at easily at 1/4 of a second, or paying more attention, I would get a lot of good shots at 1/2 of a second. That to me equals to 3-4 stops of stabilization. I don't care about the advertised amount. 3-4 stops, if I can shoot at 1/2 of a second handheld, it's fine. 1/4 of a second, it's fine. Most of the time, I won't need any more than that. So finally, a stabilized X-E camera, that is a huge game changer, at least for me. Now, when it comes to the gripes that I have with this camera, there's one flaw that you can probably look at when it comes to the design. The fact that the screen on the back can flip up, and while it's flipping up, it's getting, yes, it gives you that selfie type of user experience, but also it exposes this wire here. For many, this has been a big conversation point, a big talking point, because it exposes it a little bit too much. I agree, it could have been done better. However, this is not a camera that is made for vlogging. Yes, you can do it. It's a decent video camera, but if you're looking at after a vlogging camera, you're probably better off using an XS20 if you want, because it's going to get you better video result. The sensor that you have in the XS20 is better suited for video, especially handheld video. the rolling shutter and the sensor is a little bit too high to be able to be using it like freely handheld and all of that. If you're shooting on a tripod and not shooting not super fast moving objects, this camera is going to get you pretty great video results. But as a video tool, there's other cameras that are better suited for that. So you won't be using the screen flipping up 180 degrees all the time. I would argue you're not going to use it that many times. But if you do, yes, the wire on the back is definitely super exposed. Now, the camera gets provided with a very high-end camera strap, and that is really nice. However, for someone like me, I tend not to use straps because, or when I use straps, I won't be able to remove them because I want to have the flexibility of going without a strap, with a wrist strap, with a neck strap. So having the maximum flexibility. For this reason, I'm using these big design anchor links that you see over here. Well, these holes that you see on the side of the camera are so small that you cannot even put one of these anchor link through it. So I need to use an additional metal ring to be able to do that. Not a big issue, not something that should be a deal breaker for anyone. But if they were a millimeter wider, it would have been a lot easier for the way I use the camera to be able to use it more freely. The one thing that I noticed is that this camera tends to get warm and eat battery pretty faster compared to the X-T50, and that surprised me because they share pretty much the same internals, same sensor, same processor, same battery. This is the old NP126S. But while the X-T50 was kind of a little bit of a battery life champion, considering the battery that it's in the camera, this one is not. I asked Fujifilm, they told me this is a pre-production camera, and I believe that issue is going to get solved by the time the camera hits the market because there's no reason for it to be like that. Same sensor, same processor, same battery should give me pretty much the same results. And the X-T50 doesn't tend to get warm at all. This one does. So there must be a tweak here and there to make it work exactly like the X-T50. So I wouldn't be overly worried with that. Another weird choice is this Bluetooth button on the back, on the bottom of the camera. I don't know why they decided to put a button down there. Doesn't make too much sense to me, and I don't think you're going to be using that button that many times. That requires a dedicated button like that. Also, the camera is not weather sealed, so getting a button at the bottom of the plate, let's just say you spill some water and it goes below the camera, normally you wouldn't have anything to worry about, but with the button over there, it's kind of a weak spot. I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense to me. All in all, this camera does everything it's supposed to be doing for an enthusiast photographer, as a daily driver, as a street photography tool. This is going to be more than enough for the vast majority of those photographers that are looking at rangefinder styled camera that doesn't break the bank. This is the only option you have with interchangeable lenses as of now. Because no, don't tell me the Sony A7C II or 7CR has the same vibes of this one. There's no chance. I have one. There's no comparison between a Fuji like that and a Sony A7CR. So this is the only one that you can get in this price range, unless you're considering the S9, the Panasonic S9, but that is not actually a photo camera. That is more of a video camera in the form of a rangefinder style camera. So this camera is unique, and as a unique tool is going to win over a lot of people, at least in my opinion. This camera, of course, is best used with small lenses, primes, or small zooms. It's not built to be used with it's not meant to be used for sport photography or wildlife photography. This is not the right camera for that type of use. Yes, it's not cheap. It's definitely an expensive camera, and it's definitely way more expensive than you would imagine in the US because of the tariffs. In the rest of the world, I believe the price that you have with this camera is just about right. If it was lower, no one would have complained, but also you cannot even say it's overpriced. With all the technology you have inside, with all the features that you have inside, with the fact that this camera is following the line of X100, which is selling like hotcakes, it makes sense that it's priced like that. And now other cameras that are in the same price range but are completely different cameras. I don't know, the Z5 II, the Nikon Z5 II. Those are not competitors to this camera, because if you're looking for a camera like this, you're definitely not looking at a camera like that. So while they are in the same ballpark of price, they're for different people. There's no way someone who's looking at this is going to say, no, you know what? I get better value out of a Z5 II. I'm going to get that. Because if you're looking at this, you're looking at a small camera that is lightweight enough and is going to be used with small lenses. So the argument of there's a lot of choices around, in my opinion, doesn't make too much sense. However, using this camera as my daily driver made me question one thing. What does the new X Pro, whatever number is going to be, camera need to bring to the table to be better than this and to justify a higher price? Because that is going to be at a higher price. This is not the video to discuss about that, but I'm curious. If you want to know what I think about that, let me know in the comments below, because I believe that is an interesting topic. I already released a video like that a year ago, or maybe more. You can find it over here. A lot of things have changed, and I'm ready to discuss that again following the release of this camera the way it was released. For me, for now, that's it. Ciao, grazie, and I'll see you in the next one.